Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. This is Channel Vision editor Gerald Baldino here, and today we'll be having a roundtable discussion with Blackfoot Carrier Services and Range on leveraging a wholesale partner to deliver managed services. Joining us today is Todd Tweedy, who is Director of Carrier Services at Blackfoot, along with Blackfoot Network Engineer Sean Dombrowski. Also with us is Rob Johnson, who is a Business Development Manager at Range, and Product Development Specialist Eric Midling. Please stay tuned for a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. If you have any questions during the presentation, you can submit them through the Q&A portal located at the bottom of the Zoom platform. At this point, I'd like to turn the webinar over to Todd to begin. Todd?
Thanks, Gerald. Great to be working with you again. And thanks everyone else for joining us today. Appreciate you carving out an hour of your day. We've got a mixed group in terms of the attendees. Some of you know Blackfoot well, Some of you probably have no idea what we're really all about. So I thought I'd start by giving a brief background, brief profile of what Blackfoot's all about. Many of you probably remember that movie in the 90s, River Runs Through It. Well, that river is actually our namesake, and there were quite a few scenes from that movie shot on the Blackfoot River. And depending upon who you ask in Montana, the fact that movie kind of put Montana on the map might be a good thing or might be a bad thing, depending upon their perspective. But our history actually predates that movie quite a bit. It goes all the way back to 1954 when the Blackfoot Telephone Cooperative was formed. Really, the mission back then was providing voice services to rural Montana communities and even some ranchers. So you fast forward to today, and wow, was the profile of the organization different. Approximately 6 decades later, our solution profile includes some IT services. Obviously, we're talking about managed services today. We're doing cloud development and delivery, and delivering some wholesale carrier services as well. So we've got ILEC and CLEC operations in western Montana and southeastern Idaho. We've got offices in Missoula, Bozeman, Montana, and St. Anthony, Idaho. We have the region's largest multi-gigabit network with approximately 30,000 service locations, and we're servicing customers across 16 western states. On the wholesale side of the house, our biggest customer, who thanks to an NDA needs to be nameless, but we're actually providing service to one of the big 4 mobile carriers with backhaul to towers across Montana and Wyoming, numbering about 250, 260 sites. On the retail side of the house, specific to managed services, is a home health care provider who is leveraging our SD-WAN solution. 34 locations, give or take today. That number is growing. And the connectivity, the underlying connectivity comes in the form of fiber and a commodity circuit. So the network map I've got pulled up right now, obviously based on our ILEC and CLEC operations, we've got network assets in western Montana and southeastern Idaho. But about a year or so ago, Blackfoot joined a consortium of network operators. And these network operators are located in Idaho, eastern Montana, Wyoming, Nebraska. And though this map doesn't depict it just yet, our most recent partner is from Minnesota. And the underlying business driver associated with this consortium or partnership is to interconnect our networks via a series of NNIs and jointly go to market, promoting and marketing this regional network. There's underlying contractual drivers in the form of a stringent MSA and SLA, and we've developed some preferred pricing amongst the partners. So a little bit about Blackfoot, but we want to quickly transition into the managed services story, or what we affectionately refer to as our journey. And that started a little over a year ago, and there's lots of things that have transpired internally within the last year. Eric, do you want to cue up your piece of the presentation and kind of talk about our journey over the last year or so?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Todd. So Eric Midling here, and I'm the product specialist over at Blackfoot. And as Todd said, I'm just going to touch a little bit just on our journey into managed services, and I guess I'd say more specifically managed network services. when we really started taking a deeper dive into managed network services, it's been a couple years now, as Todd just mentioned. There were, and I guess I'd say there still are, several factors that really became clear to us. And I'd say the first one is, in general, hardware vendors like, the Cisco's and VMwares of the world, they haven't really positioned themselves, or I guess they have positioned themselves to really only sell hardware and licensing. They aren't necessarily trying to compete at the end user level like ISPs would be, like Blackfoot Range, and I imagine a bunch of the other folks on this call. What else we kind of found in our research and really our firsthand experience is that we believe there is a significant opportunity for ISPs who have that real boots on the ground relationship and presence, but really also have that deep knowledge and expertise of their customers' existing networks and what the requirements are. And I guess the other thing not to put on the wayside too is that just having that WAN expertise and that real depth of expertise that we all, as an ISP have, managing, maintaining really our own networks, but also the networks of our installed customer base. So, we've also been able to leverage our existing relationships and our networking expertise to successfully compete against larger ISPs like, CenturyLink is an example here, kind of locally. Where we've kind of seen and observed that they lack some of those deep relationships and that level of trust that we find has really allowed us to establish a foothold with sort of what we classify as small SMBs, small medium-sized businesses, in our region. And that last bullet point there too is, we've seen success competing against local managed IT service providers that we found have historically focused much more on the LAN side of the shop. And they just simply don't have that depth of WAN expertise compared to an ISP. Again, this is just kind of generalizations that we found as we've sort of observed the landscape. So really after taking kind of that high level look at managed network services market and kind of validating those findings with what we've been experiencing in our local markets, we feel there's a very significant opportunity for small to medium sized ISPs in the managed network market space. So thanks for moving that. That leads to the next question is, of what problem or problems can we solve for customers in this market? And really no surprises here at the end of the day, customers, they expect uptime from their ISPs. Probably not surprising to all of you, right? And just ensuring that the circuits are up at each location or for your customer is really, it's no longer enough. At least that's what we've been finding. Security is playing a critical role and a growing role in ensuring uptime for a business. A good example, one I like to use a lot, is a business that gets hit with a ransomware attack. That can lead to them pretty much being dead in the water if their employees are unable to access any of the critical files that they rely on within their server or their WAN infrastructure, or critical applications they need to make sure that they're operational. They're able to take money from their customers, or they're able to just keep their employees busy. In that case, it really doesn't matter if their circuits are up or down or not. In their minds, they're down. They're not able to access the tools they need to do their business. So what's the point of having a circuit that's up and running, more or less? So that kind of leads to a few of the stats here on this slide that just kind of show some of those impacts that we found, just that kind of that highlight this problem that smaller businesses, medium-sized businesses are facing. You might say to just kind of a layman that 99.5 network connectivity, that sounds pretty good, but that, in findings that these stats, I guess I should kind of sort some of the resources here. Was this research sort of came from, Malwarebytes, who's very strong in the antivirus malware protection industry, as well as Gartner and IDC, just some pretty significant research firms. And these trends kind of became obvious in looking at those papers. But again, back to that 99.5 network connectivity, that in general can equate to roughly 2 to 2.5% loss in revenue. That can be pretty significant for a small business that's running on razor thin margins. The other things, these are kind of more security related, but just kind of highlighting the impact of and the importance, I guess, of security, and not just thinking about network uptime as just circuits, right? The cost of a security breach, for a small business, really on average, it can run in the $120,000 per incident. And that includes, a wide variety of different factors and variables as far as, the cost to recover if they're hiring an IT firm to help them recover files or whatever it is, depending on the type of cybersecurity breach they have, or simply just lost revenue from customers not being able to purchase services, or loss of reputation and customers moving on somewhere else because they've lost trust in that organization. And that's a pretty hefty fee for a small business to pay. I don't know a lot of small businesses that have $120,000 laying around to be able to support or to recover from an incident like that. So again, wide variety of factors here, but a significant percentage of those small businesses that do suffer a security breach, a significant portion of them will close within 6 months of that breach incident. Another really interesting trend that we've been seeing over the past couple of years is kind of this shift of where cyber attacks are happening. There's kind of these buckets of the enterprise, small business, and like the residential audience. And there's been a shift over the past few years of really focusing in these these bad actors focusing in on some of these small businesses. I believe this 43% was the 2018. So the total number of cyber attacks, and this was from the source was Malwarebytes. The total number of cyber attacks was 43% was targeting small businesses in particular. And in this day and age, really the value is in the data, and a lot of small businesses, they hold that data, right? They're holding data for their own employee base, and that includes social security numbers and all that good stuff that you need to steal somebody's identity. But at the same time, that a lot of that data exists for the small business owners' customers. And being able to exploit some of these SMBs who probably don't have an endless war chest of funds to be able to ensure an enterprise grade security system, that there's a lot of vulnerabilities in that SMB audience to be able to tackle. Next slide, please. So now that we've kind of identified some of the problems, and again, this is kind of reinforcing our journey that we've come through in managed network services. So we've identified some of the problems that we're trying to solve, and now I'd like to talk briefly just kind of about the alignment of the landscape and the problems that we just talked about with those opportunities that we feel are out there, and how that aligns with the managed network services that we'll discuss here in a little bit in more detail. One of the major opportunities lies with how and where businesses are accessing their critical files and applications. Again, probably no surprises here. I'm sure most of you are aware of this, but cloud adoption, or the adoption, I guess, of cloud services is increasing very rapidly. You can see up on the stat here that according to Gartner, 93% of businesses today use some form of a cloud service with plans to increase adoption. So, another story that this tells is the adoption of cloud services. From a network perspective, it's really changing the way businesses and their branches are consuming that WAN bandwidth. Cloud-based SaaS services and collaboration tools like Microsoft Teams, Skype, Zoom that we're all on right now are creating bandwidth-intensive requirements that many traditional WANs are really struggling to keep up with, particularly in a cost-effective way. So, with SD-WAN, for example, you'll see that kind of scattered on this slide as well. But one of the features in that is the ability to have direct internet breakout at a branch as opposed to sort of backhauling traffic to a hub site. But by doing this direct internet breakout that SD-WAN enables, organizations are able to have significant cost savings, but as well as performance improvements. So, again, on the slide, just some more stats from Gartner and IDC showing the opportunities that exist with managed network services. Really primarily being driven by changing behaviors and how businesses are using their networks today, how new technologies like SD-WAN are supporting that change of behavior. And ultimately what we found is, the spending patterns are aligning with this opportunity as businesses continue to invest more in cloud adoption, cybersecurity, and SD-WAN technologies. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Todd, and he's going to dive into some more details of really how we think that you can take advantage of these opportunities.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Eric. So from our view, we see at least 5 benefits of a wholesale managed services partnership. Getting to market faster. A couple of times in the last couple of weeks, I've been asked what I think is an ideal partner from a managed services standpoint. And certainly size comes into play. A regional player similar in size to Blackfoot or a small rural ILEC, that would make sense. But there's also some what I would refer to as intangible things that I think come into play. One of which would be, are you an opportunistic organization? Do you think opportunistically about capitalizing on opportunities in the marketplace or opportunities with your existing customers? Are you customer centric? Do you try to be agile and nimble and service those customers any way you can? And if so, if you do have that opportunistic mindset, how can you get to market faster with a solution? Eric talked about our journey, and it's been a year plus to get to the point we are today. So, hypothetically, even if you're faster and more efficient than Blackfoot is in terms of getting something to market faster, will the opportunity with your customers plural still be around in 4 or 6 months if you had time to do your research and development, build your business plan, and roll something out to them? So certainly one of the benefits we believe is getting to market faster and being able to service an existing need within your customer base. Branding it as your own. As a wholesale partner of Blackfoot, you can absolutely slap your own logo on these appliances, on this gear, and brand it as your own. Take it to the marketplace as your own solution. So accessing key partners. Eric talked about this a little while ago in terms of the opportunity. Wide adoption, high adoption of cloud apps. So as a partner of Blackfoot, you get access to key on-ramp partners such as Amazon Web Services, Azure, and even partnering with secondary ISPs. So training and support. The model we have in mind is a really classic or really traditional wholesale model that a Blackfoot partner would tend to be the face with the existing customer. They would provide the classic tier 1 support. They would own that relationship, manage that relationship, and Blackfoot would be in the background, and we could even be anonymous if we needed to, and provide the traditional tier 2 type support. And that might be ongoing support in terms of network troubleshooting or appliance troubleshooting, but it's also we're also in the picture up front in terms of doing the architecture and the design of a managed services or an SD-WAN solution. So the cost savings piece, that's really a function of, I guess I could cite cliches here, win-win or those type of cliches, because there's a volume discount model involved here. So if you sell more, we sell more, other partners sell more, we're going to drive additional discounts through volume tiers. Okay. So Sean, Eric, you kind of want to walk the audience through our solution mix as it sits right now?
Sure. So you have to forgive me in this work from home environment. If you hear a train roll through, I'll try to mute myself appropriately. So I kind of wanted to go over this slide, just sort of capture the history behind it. So we at Blackfoot, so I guess to back up, I'm Sean Dombrowski, one of 7 network engineers at Blackfoot. And we've been using Meraki-based solutions, providing them for years, pretty much since Meraki came out. And recently with the more requests we're seeing from customers for more demand for failover type of options outside of our own network to utilize commodity-based circuits or LTE, we had gone down the path of crafting a product that would accommodate that. So that's sort of the first 2 columns where you see we have essential and enhanced offerings, which include automatic 4G failover, zero-touch provisioning, all the stuff you see there. So the cool thing about Meraki is the zero-touch provisioning, I consider more of a zero-touch provisioning light. You have to do an initial amount of provisioning out of the box before it will come up on 4G remotely. But that idea really appealed to us, and so it kind of led us down the path of forming a partnership with a major mobile carrier to offer 4G to our customers in a way that we can quickly turn them up and access our own online portal and build it into our product. So that's kind of where Essential started from, and that gives you that always-on connectivity that a lot of our SMBs that are processing point of sale or other critical applications need. So enhance, the column next to it's kind of an extension of that, where we essentially add on a license that gives additional security, IDS, IPS, advanced malware, content and URL filtering. Now, the nice thing about the MX series of Meraki's is that they're UTM, Unified Threat Management boxes. So they have quite a few security features built into them, client VPN among them. So if we go to the next column, we have the enterprise offering. So that's where we start to get into more of the SD-WAN type of features. So Meraki being a UTM box, it has SD-WAN features, but we've kind of, in our experience with it and testing it and utilizing it with customers, we've realized it's more of an SD-WAN light type of offering, and we've positioned it as such. So if you think about SD-WAN, what it entails, it's an overlay utilizing VPN tunnels across your underlay. Underlay could be direct or dedicated circuits, commodity circuits, MPLS, whatever. So once you start utilizing, dual VPNs in a failover or, data replication, load balancing type of fashion, then it kind of brings it into more of that SD-WAN type of tier, where the features that we've kind of checked out here are available. End-to-end QoS, application-aware traffic shaping, etc. So with the furthest to the right column, our enterprise tier under VMware's VeloCloud, we find a lot more features there are available for enterprise customers that require more of that, like instant failover, always on connectivity. For example, voice failover. Because Meraki, it was more of a flow-based type of load balance. If you lose a circuit, you'd lose a call. Whereas we found with VeloCloud, it does per packet load balancing across multiple circuits, 2 or more. And it can really sustain those brownouts a lot better, periods of jitter or packet loss, or a complete outage seamlessly. So you won't even drop a voice call. So we found that enterprise customers that are looking for more of that, hit list type of failover, if they're like heavy on VoIP or business collaboration or stuff like that, we found that we'll steer them more toward the enterprise grade type of SD-WAN that VeloCloud offers. So I won't get into the weeds too much with the technical aspects of it, but dynamic multipath optimization is their own sort of label for that. Link steering, QoS, sub-second failover talked about. End-to-end QoS, really cool. The different sites within the orchestrator are constantly communicating and are aware of the utilization of the last mile circuits at each individual location. So they can prevent congestion before it starts, because one branch talking to another branch is the cloud orchestrator is aware of the utilization of a particular branch and can and throttle and shape accordingly. So as such, on the VMware VeloCloud side of things, it has a lot of service provider based features that are really interesting. So it gives you the ability with the gateways that sit in the cloud to peer via BGP with your routing protocols on your service provider network with your provider edge routers. So if you're a service provider, this is really handy because you can basically build in, if you have a legacy MPLS network, you can build that into your new SD-WAN network via peering through the VeloCloud gateways. So that sort of led us down the path of, well, if we want to utilize these cool extra features, then we're going to have to build our own infrastructure in our major POPs. So we've deployed servers in Seattle, Denver, and our main data center in Missoula we virtualized what are called VeloCloud gateways, VCGs, to sit on those servers, and those can peer with our PEs. They can also peer with our direct connect partners. So for cloud on-ramping, we can extend our SD-WAN solution all the way out to the cloud, to an AWS or Azure, pick your flavor. And you can extend your SD-WAN all the way from the branch up to the cloud via the infrastructure that we've built there. So pretty cool. Lots of other features I have too many notes on, probably don't need to get into. So with that, I'll let Eric add to that.
Yeah, I was just going to chime in. Yeah, that one feature that's missing there is Sean Dombrowski on the check mark across all the boards there. So, I mean, that's kind of one of the big, as we've been talking through this, just kind of thinking about, I mean, a lot of the value, and this was, quite a bit of work, just vetting, evaluating these different solutions, and really, particularly with the Meraki platform too, we tried to look at it in sort of this way that we can target some of our smaller customers, but also provide them this smooth migration path as either they grow or their network requirements change. So, there's quite a bit of thought that went into just designing this platform and sort of meeting the needs now, but also building it into the future. But just another point, and it kind of reaffirms, I think, some of the points that Todd made too, just about the partnership and in partnering with Blackfoot in a wholesale realm, is that we have a pretty deep team of network engineers that are able to sort of walk you and your clients through what their needs are, because some of these can be they can be complicated, they can be very simple, but it can also be complicated, and making sure that the network is being designed in a way that satisfies your customers' needs now and into the future, I think is a really critical piece. And frankly, yeah, it's probably a feature we should throw on that matrix there. So yeah, I guess with that, I think maybe we can advance to the next one and just kind of talk about some of the proof of concepts that we've done, and specifically we can dive into the details of the range POC that we've kind of cracked into here.
Sure. Yeah. My name is Rob Johnson. I'm the business development manager at Range. We're a communications provider with a large fiber network in the state of Wyoming and in southeast Montana. We stretch down into Colorado, a few different neighboring states as well. We were approached by a large enterprise customer with 30 locations asking about redundancy on their network. They had an existing wide area network with 30 sites, and what they were looking for, every time they'd have a fiber cut in one of these communities, they would be down hard, and they'd be down until it was fixed, because a lot of these smaller communities have one provider, and when that provider has issues, they're out of luck. So we had to put our heads together here at Range and thought, how can we help this customer? And our first thought was, let's reach out to Blackfoot. We had known about their partner program, their SD-WAN, and what they were developing on that side of the house. So we called Todd and had a discussion with them and just asked, hey, is this something you guys would be interested in helping us out with? They said, absolutely. And they said, look into our wholesale managed partnership. And so we did. And so we had, and when we talked to this customer, back up a little bit, we talked to this customer, and you never get the request of, hey, I'd like to see some pricing and a solution 3 months from now. It's always 3 days from now, a week from now. We have a deadline we need to meet for budget, all those kind of things. So Todd and his team, and credit to Blackfoot on that end, they dropped whatever they were doing, and they got on a few calls with us and kind of walked us through what they were looking at and what they had developed. And we were able to put a solution together to propose to this customer. They had offered, they said, hey, if you want our technical folks on any calls with you guys while you're talking to the customer, great. If you want us to hang out in the background, that's great too. Just kind of let us know what you need from us. Our first step at that point was to do a proof of concept where Blackfoot drop shipped us a couple of Merakis. We plugged them in at multiple locations using multiple providers. Did very minimal provisioning from what I'm told. I'm not on the technical side, but I got the kind of the rundown from some of our guys. It was very easy to use. Plugged it in and started working it day one. It was very simple. The performance of those were great. We monitored packet loss while basically accessing a media server on one end from the other end over this SD-WAN platform, over the Merakis, and we're able to do that seamlessly, and it was great. And anytime we had a question, and I'd echo what Eric said, we were able to call Sean, email Sean, get some advice from him on, hey, what are we missing here? Are we missing something? Did we do everything correctly? And that was fantastic. So credit to them on that end. And then as far as some business drivers for us, what we really saw is we were faced with this opportunity, and we didn't have the time to sit down and try to develop our own product or our own service to meet the customer need. Blackfoot had already done that on the back end. They'd spent, and like they'd mentioned, like I think Sean and Eric both had mentioned, it had taken years to get this to where they wanted it. We didn't have that luxury to do that, to try and provide a solution for that opportunity. As far as research and development, I imagine if there are other providers or other ISPs on this call that you would agree that your staff, sometimes they can get tapped out. They have enough on their plate where if you try to throw them, research and development for a solution like this, it takes a lot of time and resources, and a lot of times that can take away from what you do day to day and what your normal business calls for. So that was a huge benefit for us as well. And then kind of the last piece of a business driver for us with our comfort level with Blackfoot is that we've had a long-standing relationship with Blackfoot. We work together on the transport side of the house quite often and try to help each other out as often as we can, because we're neighbors regionally. There's times where we have opportunities, we're responding to RFPs where there's a number of sites or locations that we need Blackfoot to provide last mile connectivity for us. We do the same for them. And so it's a great relationship that we have with them. And that's really, that's in a nutshell kind of what drove our interest in the partnership. And it's been great. So with that, I'm going to throw it back to Gerald, I think, to kind of close us out here.
Fantastic. Thanks, guys, for the excellent presentation there. We have time for some questions. Just a reminder, if you have anything that you want to ask, please submit it through the Q&A portal. To kick things off, why do you recommend SD-WAN over MPLS?
I can start a response there, Gerald. Gents, chime in as you seem fit. I'd look at SD-WAN as perhaps an alternative to MPLS. I certainly don't expect MPLS networks to go away tomorrow or anytime soon. But there's certainly some distinct advantage about an SD-WAN solution versus MPLS. MPLS, tried and true, very secure, very stable. But when you look at the cost side of things, there's some studies that have indicated an SD-WAN network can generate an 80 to 90% savings on a month-to-month basis versus MPLS. Deployment time is another consideration. A managed service or an SD-WAN solution can generally get turned up quite a bit quicker than an MPLS network, and afford the network managers some flexibility, some customization that they may not have with an MPLS network. Sean, Eric, feel free to chime in, add more.
I can just add one other quick thought too. It's not necessarily an either or. We see a lot of hybrid requests and hybrid deployments where we go in and it goes back to that kind of the leveraging the assessment and that expertise in designing networks, where I'd say a pretty solid percentage of the SD-WAN deployments we've had have gone into that hybrid deployment where they're still maintaining, at least maintaining, or maybe they're downgrading their existing MPLS, but they're adding in a commodity circuit. A particular customer we have sort of in the healthcare realm, requires their MPLS. They need that high quality connectivity and that reliability, low latency, all that good stuff for some of their applications where they without that they were experiencing sessions dropping on them. Being able to leverage SD-WAN in that hybrid deployment, they've added a commodity circuit where now they run backups. They used to do that nightly, but now they can just kind of do it whenever they need to by leveraging that additional bandwidth, and it's very cheap bandwidth that they can leverage for running their backups. So that's the thing. SD-WAN, it's very flexible, so it provides a lot of different rabbit holes you can run down as far as how our network is, how it's designed based on the requirements and the needs of the customer.
Yeah, Eric, you hit just about everything there. The only thing I would add is in discussions with our existing MPLS customers, a lot of those we've already deployed just for an additional layer of security, more of a legacy DMVPN Cisco's DMVPN that overlays across the MPLS. So customers are familiar with and comfortable with the idea of just transitioning that to an SD-WAN to gain some of the additional features like Eric had mentioned, the offload onto the commodity circuit for less critical traffic and stuff like that. So yeah, just to mirror Eric's on that is it doesn't have to be an either or type of situation.
Okay. Next question here. Can we white label Blackfoot's managed service solutions?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the intended benefits of the wholesale partnership with Blackfoot, Gerald, that can absolutely throw your own logo on the offering, the appliances, and bring it to the marketplace as your own.
Fantastic. Next question in the queue here. As a wholesale partner, what are my responsibilities? Does Blackfoot interact directly with my customer?
Yeah, so I touched on this a little bit when we were talking about the training and support piece. The motto we have in mind is for the Blackfoot partner to leverage an existing relationship, continue to be the face and manage that relationship, and then really fulfill what we refer to as a tier 1 support role, field billing calls, field general technical calls, do the sales qualification piece. But then behind the scenes, and if we need to if we need to remain anonymous, that's absolutely fine. If a partner's comfortable with involving us and having us on calls with the customer, like Rob talked about with the range POC situation, we can do that as well. So it's kind of a classic case of the partner needs to take care of tier 1 support, manage that relationship, continue to be the face of that relationship, and Blackfoot will fulfill the tier 2 role, do some upfront design and network architecture work, and then if there's some network trouble or appliance trouble along the way, we'll fulfill that role as well.
Okay, great. Guys, I think that should wrap up today's webinar. Big thank you to all of our presenters, to everyone over at Blackfoot and Range, and of course to all of you for attending today's event. To access this webinar on demand, please head over to channelvisionmag.com/webinars, and please keep an eye out from Channel Vision for an email which will contain a link to this presentation. Thanks. Stay safe out there, everyone, and we'll see you next time.